Know where I've been, but I know where I'm going. Yeah,
The gift, nigga.
yeah. So it's fuck you with a grin. Yeah, you niggas got outvoted. Yeah, yeah.
I never moved a brick, but I've been juggling O's of this leafy green under the government's nose, looking like pig.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Two Beers with Ben. I'm your host, Chris Schramm, and you were just listening to the song Flying Nimbus by my man Fifth Letter, who is a hip hop artist and creative out of Denver, Colorado. Mr. Fifth Letter, if you don't mind, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're sipping on? And then I'm going to introduce this beauty right here that is not working on my camera, but as long as the beer's good, that's all that matters.
It's all good, man. First and foremost, happy to be here. Thank you for for reaching out in the first place. Always excited to have a conversation about music. Once again, my stage name is Fifth Letter. I live in Denver, Colorado right now, but I'm originally from the Bronx, NYC. By the way of Atlanta. I moved here last year. This is my first trip and first voyage into the West, per se. It's pretty cool though, man. Going from the dirty South to like the Wild Wild West is definitely interesting because it's like from one type of country to another, to a different type of country, and I really appreciate the surroundings. But most importantly, like you said, I'm a hip hop artist. I'm a creative. I have a podcast. It's called the Urban Black Nerd Podcast. I'm a bit of a pop culture aficionado. I love everything from music to anime to comic books. I'm just films. I love creative things. I'm the type of guy you might catch in a museum or a concert. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe a comedy club. I'm into a lot of things, and I love to just experience different forms of art, different ways of expression, and in the same way, I'm the type of guy to express myself in as many ways as possible. So, yeah, I'm excited about this, man.
Okay, where can we find your podcast?
My podcast is on Spotify and YouTube as of right now. We only have one episode up as of right now, but we've had some production delays, but we should be dropping another 2 episodes soon. So
Okay, so one more time for the audience, what's the name of the podcast, and we can find it on Spotify and YouTube?
No problem at all. The name of the podcast is the Urban Black Nerd Podcast.
All right, cool. Ladies and gentlemen, definitely check that out. All right.
Yes, sir.
So, what are you sipping on over there?
Honestly, man, I am sipping on some good whole mountain water.
Mountain.
I'm on a bit of a sobriety break on alcohol right now, So this is what I'm doing right now, keeping the system clean.
Well, down south, mountain water could be a whole different thing.
I think my grandfather used to call it white lightning, right?
Yeah,
that's what you call it? Yeah.
White lightning. I've heard it called several different things, but the drink Mountain Dew, the carbonated drink Mountain Dew, if I'm not mistaken, it was created to be mixed with moonshine to cut down on the amount of moonshine that was in your glass, so you could sip on it, still get the moonshine, but it wouldn't be straight moonshine. Now, I could be mistaken, but I believe that's how that came about. So
if that's true,
I've heard it called white lightning. I've heard it called Mountain Dew, Kentucky spring water. It's got so many different names down here.
Yeah.
But I am sipping on, and of course the camera won't let it show, but it's called a Pale Green Horse. It is a 7.4% ABV IPA. It's a hazy IPA. It's a collab between Jester Brewery and Yazoo Brewing, which is here in Nashville. I found this in the grocery store a couple of days ago, and I'm a huge fan of Yazoo, so I thought, why not go ahead and pick it up, give it a shot, and see what I think. But first question: how did you come up with the name Fifth Letter?
That's an interesting story, actually. So my first stage name was E-Rock, right? When I was in high school. And I got to a point where I felt like it sounded like an 80s rap name. So I was like, I kind of want to bring it up to a current sound as far as the name went. I was watching a rap battle one day, and this guy was spelling out his name. His name is Verse. So instead of saying the letter E when he was spelling it out, he said fifth letter. And something about that just stood out to me because growing up, my name being Ian, it's spelled E-U-N. My mom already made a 3-letter name more complicated than it already was, right? So a lot of people would call me E growing up. So I was like, man, how can I take the letter E and use it as my stage name? But I couldn't figure it out. But when I heard fifth letter, I was like, that's perfect because I can use the one letter but stretch it out in a way. And the other cool thing is there's a rapper who goes by the name of Rakim. He's one of the Mount Rushmore of raps, like one of our the originators. And he has an album called The 18th Letter. So I thought that was pretty cool. So it's kind of a shout out to an OG within hip hop. At the same time, it ties into my name. So fifth letter.
Well, your email, it is who is fifth letter, and a couple of other things that when I was looking you up, it who is fifth letter is how I found it. Now,
Definitely. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Now, why do you have who is in front of those things?
Oh, I guess it just happened to be like, because everybody always asks me what it means. So, it was kind of like just adding to the mystique of that. And people always calling me 5 days later after meeting me, like, it's E, I get it. And I'm like, it's like a eureka moment. So who is fifth letter is just to add to the question of like, why my name is that in the first place. That makes sense.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you that because I thought it was unique that you have who is fifth letter in some of your names and in your email, because it's almost, for me, it's a question and a question. So
definitely,
I think it's artistic and unique. So I wanted to bring that up.
I appreciate that.
But how did you get into music? I know that's a question you've probably been asked a million times, but I think your fans and your soon-to-be new fans definitely would like to know.
I definitely agree with that. Well, it's layered. I grew up in a household full of music. My parents are first generation hip hop kids. They were coming up in a time, when they were young and hip hop was a brand new thing. And, growing up, the main thing I heard in the house was R&B and hip hop with them. And then, it would, when you open up to my grandmother, who was Puerto Rican, I lived in the Bronx at the time. So it was a lot of Spanish music, a lot of salsa, a lot of merengue. And then I would go to South Carolina with my grandparents on my dad's side. So I'm half black and half Puerto Rican. My mom is Puerto Rican and my dad is African American. And when I would go to the South, I would go to South Carolina, and my grandparents would be listening to old soul records, a lot of old R&B, a lot of vinyls. Then I had, aunts and uncles listening to anything from hip hop to Michael Jackson, Alanis Morissette. Like, I've always had music around me. In the Bronx growing up, it was extremely regular to see somebody going down the block with a huge speaker and a forklift and just, dragging it around and playing it as loud as possible, being from New York, whether you're in school and there's a cipher or you're going through the train, you're going through the train station and you see somebody performing on the side, whether it be them beating on the trash can, singing a song, doing some poetry. So it's it's always whether it's performance or the music, it's always been a part of like my backdrop. And as I've gotten older, it's become more and more important. And it just led me to a space where I wanted to rap. And for years, I wanted to do it, but it was conflicting because I didn't want to be a whack rapper. So it was like, if I'm going to do this, I want to be good at it. And I want to say it was about when I was 15, I had a friend of mine was a producer in school. When I was living in Atlanta by this time, I made it to Atlanta by high school. And him and his mom actually brought a beat CD over to my house. And that was the beginning for me. I took that beat CD and started writing songs to it. I had an uncle who passed away, my Uncle Larry, R.I.P. He was the first person to put me in the studio. He would drive all the way from South Carolina just to come pick me up in Atlanta to take me back to South Carolina to record. And he would pay for my studio time with weed. But it was I'm super thankful. He was the first person to be supportive of me and believe in me before I was good at all. So shout out to him.
Who were your biggest influences as far as music growing up, coming from such a diverse background?
My biggest influences growing up, I would say, within hip hop, people like Jay-Z, Biggie Smalls, A Tribe Called Quest. Let's see, Eminem. Let's see. So outside of hip hop, it was Michael Jackson. It was Mary J. Blige. I loved her growing up as an R&B artist. I used to like reggae a lot growing up. My mom listened to a lot of reggae as well. So I was like fond of people like Shaggy and Bounty Killer and let's see who else. I'm trying to think who else. I can't think of any more reggae names, but reggae was also a big thing growing up because also my godmother was Jamaican, and my mom's best friend. So it was a reason why I heard a lot of that reggae growing up as well. I just say that too because I think before I knew any rap song, I knew Shaggy's song. I cannot remember the name of the song, but I knew it, right? But I would say that I remember knowing the song by heart, and then I remember like the first time I learned a rap song by heart because my first favorite rapper was Mace. He's from Harlem. He had an album called Harlem World. It was a tape. I remember when my dad was driving me from New York to South Carolina. I lived in South Carolina when I was in third grade. And on the way there, my dad played this album and something about it just like sparked my interest. It was the first time rap, like it made sense to me. Like it was like I would get it before then and I would like it, but I guess I couldn't comprehend everything that was being said. And at that time, it was the first time like it broke through and I can understand like the poetry of it, the storytelling, the the word choice. It was it kind of like was my first time being like, wow, this is something I'm gonna love. Like I knew that album by heart. So yeah.
Do you think Mace or Biggie or Jay-Z would enjoy the music that you put out?
I think so, 100%. I think I make music that's it's contemporary but very traditional in the sense of, it's rhyme oriented, it's story oriented. I do a lot of boom bap beats, which is super 90s. But I'm also open to different things. But it's more about the content and how I'm putting it together. The way I rap, the way I put my songs together. I feel like they would definitely.
So, in all that, how did your upbringing influence the music that you're putting out today?
In what sense? What do you mean?
Well, you listened, you grew up in different areas and you were exposed to different cultures per se, and you were exposed to different genres of music in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
how did a combination of all that come together to make for you to make the music you're making today? In other words, do you when you make music, do you kind of pull from all those different genres, maybe just a little bit, or do you focus on certain genres?
I would say I pulled the most from when I was younger. When I first started rapping, I would pull a lot from hip hop and R&B, a little bit of soul music. I felt like people like Biggie and Jay-Z maybe want to tell stories. People like Mace, Eminem, they made me love words and rhymes and like multi-syllables. So those things are big parts of what I do now. People like, Michael Jackson, Mary J. Blige, Pharrell, 50 Cent. They were the people I looked to when it came to hooks. As I got older, got into college, I got introduced to rock. And then that's when I got into like psychedelic rock. People like the Beatles, Jefferson Airplane, Led Zeppelin. And I started looking at music like, all right, there's other genres using lyrics. Like, it was amazing to me to see how important the rhyme was in other forms of music as well as rap. So I started pulling from different places as far as like sonically and just pushing the boundaries and doing different things. You know what I mean? Like, the Beatles doing Yellow Submarine, Led Zeppelin doing Dark Side of the Moon, The Doors, man, I love Jim Morrison. He's super dope. Yeah, man. I mean, I pull from a lot of different places, but I would say hip hop definitely. When it comes to the multi-syllabic rappers, when it comes to Mace, when it comes to Eminem, when it comes to people like Mos Def, I'm a big lover of words and vocabulary, and I love a unique rhyme. I'm not the type of rapper who's gonna take the easy way out. I'm always gonna push myself to find the words somebody else didn't say, and I think that all comes from my influences.
How would you describe your music to someone who has never heard it?
I would say first and foremost, my mission with my music is to be a representation of a child from teen parents. My parents had me at a really young age. They were 16 and 18. And my parents were told that I was going to be nothing. They were going to be nothing. So I think that's like the catalyst, first and foremost. Like, I want to be a representation of those people who were told they were going to be nothing because their parents had them young, or the people who were just written off before they even got here. From there, I would say my music is just a real representation of who I am. It's very introspective. It's very like, it's very coded with how I'm speaking to myself in my head. Like, I feel like a lot of the times, a lot of my music is just me thinking out loud. I'm really big about painting a picture, telling a story, but I feel like I look to expressionism a lot. Because within, like, you think about people like Claude Monet, when he painted, like, you knew what the painting was, right? But it was kind of abstract. The leaves and stuff were a little blurry. It was like the whole picture meant more than the specific details, right? And I feel like sometimes when I write, that's a big thing for me. Like, I feel like it's a way where I can be straightforward or I can be a little abstract, to where people can kind of put it together themselves. Like, sometimes I don't like giving my music to people straightforward. So I would say that I'm an MC who is concept driven, lyric driven. I love a good retro pop culture reference. I love a good anime reference. I like referencing movies, books. My music is just, it's hip hop, it's Black nerdism, it's, philosophy, imagination, and most importantly, color. I have synesthesia, that thing where like when you hear music, like you kind of like I connected with a color. So like this album I've been working on right now, like to me, like it's a lot of blues because it's like it's called downpour. You know, whether it's light blue, dark blue, you know, navy blue, whatever it may be. Like so, I think that's important to explaining who I am and how I do the music.
So when I listen to one of your songs, I can basically put my own definition to the song, is what you're saying. You're not telling me in the song what the song is supposed to say. You're kind of leading me down the path, and I got to find my own interpretation of the song. Or I could take it at straight face value and just kind of see your interpretation or your message in the music.
100%, 100%. I wouldn't say all my music. I do have straightforward music as well, you know, where I tell stories and it's very, you know, it's linear in a sense. But even my stories, it's still like that, I guess. So yeah, what you're saying is correct. It's just that I try to go back and forth, you know. I think as I've gotten older, I feel like my writing was more focused when I was younger, and then as I got into my 20s, it got a little more abstract, and I was coming back around to being very focused. And now, like, I get to play with it because before it was like catching lightning in a bottle. Now I'm making decisions like, hey, I want to do this on this song. It might be one verse on the song that's very straightforward, and then the other verse is something you have to kind of piece together. You know, I look at it like I like to leave breadcrumbs. I want to have people to go through and be like, this is layered. I caught this in the third or fifth listen. It's meant for people to listen to more than once. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Which one of your songs best encompasses your total sound?
Right now, I think a good representation in my favorite song I have out right now is a song called The Paranoia Arc. I like that because, you know, it shows my ability to make interesting hooks and unique hooks. And the coolest thing about that hook is I wrote it when I was probably like 19, 20. And I'm just using it now. Like I've had it for a long time and just didn't have a song I didn't want to put it to until recently. I also love the fact of the rhyme usage, the imagery. You know, I found a way to make some interesting references to a couple, like a stage play, you know, a cartoon in there. Then there's like, you know, references. Just, I like referencing the most randomest of things and linking them together like a chain. So that's the reason why I would say that music encompasses a lot of who I am, and just sonically, the way it sounds, I think it's like, I mean, I wish I had more beats like that. Like, I just love that dirty kind of Wu-Tang, synthy, open space type of sound. So yeah, that would probably be the record right now that I would pick. That would represent me the best as an artist. I feel like you can get everything that Fifth Letter is good at in that record.
Well, I've read you want to make a critically acclaimed album. How do you plan on doing that?
Taking time, building it piece by piece, not rushing. I feel like a lot of artists just try to put the first thing they think out there. And that's cool. It's not a bad thing, but I feel like to create a classic, you got to take some time on it. You got to sit with it. It has to be able to flow sonically. The concepts have to go together. You know, I love a good motif. I like something reoccurring throughout the album. Great transitions. I think to make a critically acclaimed album, it has to be cohesive, in more ways than one. Like I said earlier, like when I hear the music, the colors have to match up together, you know? Like I feel like my first album is blue all the way through. This album is like blue with a little sunshine in the middle. So it gets a little oranges and yellows in the middle, and then it goes back into the rain. But it goes with the album with the fact that, you know, it's, you know, the sun will come out. but it's going to rain again. You know what I'm saying? Figuratively and physically, you know?
Would you say that seeing songs in color, basically, is a disorder or an advantage when it comes to making music?
I think it's an advantage, especially when it comes to sequencing, because I think my first album flows really well, and this one I'm working on flows really well because of that. Because I see it the way I do, I understand the difference between the sonics, and I'm like, all right, when the color changes, I know I need an intermission. You know, I need a little skit, something to transition from one thing to another. So it helps me to kind of color code the album as I'm sequencing it. That makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
I felt like it helps me stay in the lines of not making a song sound like it's completely out of place.
What goals do you have for music, for your music?
First and foremost, I wanted to be a full-time creative. You know, right now I'm a working artist. You know, I have my day job, and I appreciate it. It gives me the time and space needed to get the things I need done, but it would be so much better to wake up every day and just do music, just be creative, just be able to plan shows, tours. I'm sorry, what was the question again? I was answering it.
Well, no, that actually leads, you answered it, but it leads to another question. You have a
Right.
full-time job, and I assume that you work on music full-time as well. So in 1 week, let's say you work 40 hours at your full-time job. How many hours a week do you put into music?
Man, it's an everyday thing. So I would say I'll probably put in about 40 hours every week, whether it's research, whether it's me on ChatGPT doing research, or, you know, online doing research, or it's me submitting my music to playlists or to podcasts, or, you know, sync licensing. You know, I'm always recording songs I'm working on, voice notes. I'm big about listening to interviews. I'm from like A&Rs, different music people from different backgrounds, from the musicians to the people behind the scenes, because I want to know the business as well as I know the music itself. I'm big about learning from other artists and creatives' mistakes or the things that they've learned. So to me, that's all a part of the music. So it's like, if I'm not working, I'm pretty much just pouring into the creativity as much as possible. You know, every night, like last night, I was up late because I was listening to a voice note of a song I've been working on for the last week. That's going to be in a compilation I have coming out with one of my producers and good friends, my boy DJ K Prime, who happens to be son of KRS-One. Shout out to him. Shout out to the family. Shout out to TKOK Entertainment and the label and the agency, you know. But yeah, that's.
Well, you spoke about submitting music. As an indie artist, do you think that submitting music is vital to furthering your career?
Definitely. I want my music to be in as many spaces as possible. You know, I want as many eyes and ears on it as I can get. So, you know, I'm learning as I build my brand. I'm understanding where my music belongs, where my voice belongs, where it could be, what's the word? My voice can be amplified. So like, I just like to reach out and see what happens. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes have people reach out to me, which is awesome, but I don't mind going out there and looking for people to have conversations with, because I love talking about this. I love explaining my music. So like, yeah, I think it's very important. I think it's important to put in the work, because if you don't put it out there, nobody's going to see it. Just posting something online is cool. It's a possibility it can go viral, but I feel like if you understand there's certain corners of the internet that could amplify your voice, why not do that?
So, Fifth Lettah is a brand.
Definitely, 100%.
And do you think for an indie artist that that is something that they should definitely pursue? There are a lot of artists, especially in this town, that they they should make their art a brand, but they don't like business. They like the creative side of music. They don't like the business side. And they've got the art down, but they're not promoting it. And like you just said, you got to promote your music because nobody else is going to do it for you unless you paid it. And as an indie artist, especially if you have a full time job, have a family, have responsibilities outside of music that you have to put your money towards, you're not going to have the money to pay someone to build your brand for you. You have to do that yourself. And like you said earlier, you want to know everything about music, the business side, how to build a brand, how to get as many eyes and ears as possible on your music. How did you go about learning that that is what you needed to do? Because there's so many artists that need to hear this, that need to be pushed forward a little bit to go down the same path you did.
I guess it was, to be honest, the turning point for me was the pandemic. Right before the pandemic, I had kind of geared up, started doing more. I released this merch, which is my first piece of merch I ever put out. Me, Myself, and Mary Jane shirts, for one of my singles off my first album. And I was just sitting there thinking, like, during the pandemic, I'm a single guy, no wife, no kids. So I had a lot of time alone during that time. And I was just thinking to myself, like, all right, if the world doesn't completely go to shit, I was like, I have to find a way to push my music more. Cause it hit me like in that moment, like that I hadn't done enough yet, that I needed to do more. And I was like, all right, let me start digging in. That's when I started really getting deep into music podcasts, started reading different books. And one of the main things was like promotion. And I was like, all right, I need to start running ads. I'm thinking to myself like a record label as an independent artist. Like before then, I'm thinking like an artist, like a creative, not thinking like it's a business. And as I started learning more, the business started becoming as fun as the music. Like I love hearing about how some of my favorite artists found their way to the top, found their way to get their music out there, and interesting ideas. Like, I remember I was reading a book. I think it's called The Tanning of America. I'm not sure if it was Tanning of America or if it was, it was Tanning of America. They were by Steve Stout. He's a music mogul, and he was talking about doing promotion for this Nas album. And he said that what they did was they put the name of the album, and they put the album cover in an insert and like the information about the artist, but they made it look like a parking ticket. And they put it in every car, so that way people would end up checking it rather than just throwing it away like other flyers. And, things like that motivated me to be like, all right, I'm going to start digitally. And as I get more money and more income from the music, I'll be able to do cooler things like that. I started running ads on Instagram, and I seen an influx of followers, listeners, fans. And it was like a eureka moment. Like, okay, because I have the internet, I'm connected to the whole world. So why am I just sectioning myself off to this part of the internet of my followers when I can reach a grander audience by pushing it out there? And I just stayed on track. As far as the brand goes, I just started learning like, all right, what my brand was and understanding who I needed to reach, who my listeners were, the demographic. I started looking at, my information that I was getting, whether it was from Instagram, Facebook, from Spotify, and using that information to then push out more ads. And it really helped, and I've learned over time, I've gotten better at it. And I just think it's so important because I look at my music And the online, like, it's Instagram is a billboard, Facebook is a billboard. I'm just putting it up digitally. And luckily, unlike most people who get to see it, you see a billboard, you driving by it on the highway. And I feel the same way about the music. I'm putting it out there so that way somebody in Japan can be swiping and go buy my music. Somebody in France, somebody in Australia, somebody in Canada, somebody in London. Like, it just gives me the ability to get out there to the people who want to hear it. You have to find your audience. I think of my music the same way I think about relationships, right? Being a single guy, I've always told people, like, who's to say that you're going to find the person you love in the state you are, in the city you're in? The person you love could be halfway across the world. And I feel the same way about my fans.
Well, I've read you have fans in over 150 countries. So
It's pretty cool, man.
Apparently your brand building is working. If you got
100%.
a fan base like that and you have no one devoting themselves full time to pushing your music.
100%, just me. I feel like it's the most beautiful thing about that is knowing that my voice has been to countries that I've never been to. And I think that's interesting. To get Shazams in France, to get Shazams in South Africa, to get Shazams in Australia and Canada, that's amazing to me. Not only was somebody playing my music in another place, but somebody was playing it and somebody else heard it and said, this is so good, I have to go look it up. And that's the hugest compliment. Like, that's what I do it for. You know what I mean? I want people to be so moved, they have to be like, what the fuck is this?
Well, circling back to merch, where can people find your merch?
Right now, I'm reworking the merch. This one sold out. During the pandemic, I learned a lot. It was an interesting time to be selling merch because a lot of factories were closed. They didn't have a lot of the sizes. They didn't have a lot of the colors. The test t-shirts that we got ended up being different from the t-shirts we got when people started sending them out and we started actually selling them. So, as of right now, I'm reworking that, but I should be redropping Me, Myself, and Mary Jane shirts and hoodies by 420 this year as a capsule to bring it back around. I'm going to start doing drops with merch where I'm doing probably about 5 designs at a time, probably like 3 with a logo, and then 2 just random ideas that I have that still tie into what I do. I'm finding this intersection between the music, different images and pictures that I've just found and photographers that I know and I could work with, but then like nerd culture, film culture, and finding a ways to kind of mix it together. I think I have some cool things that I've been working on that people are going to really like. But coming soon.
Well, other than music, do you do anything else in the arts? Do you draw? Do you write poetry? Do you do photography?
Actually, I started out acting before I was rapping. So I did plays in high school. When I was younger, I used to be in the choir at one point in time. So I've always been on stage in some way or form. It's just rapping was the thing that I loved the most and I leaned into. But I've also done like some short independent films, auditions. Acting is still something I want to do. I'm writing a book right now called Rap Theory, which will go along with my merch. It's like a book about just the rules of rap. I want somebody to be able to pick it up and be like, hey, I don't know how to rap. I want to be able to learn how to do it. Or I want somebody who's maybe, a writer who's just interested in how a rapper puts things together, how, the literary mind of a rap writer works. I'm also working on a cartoon and the podcast, like I mentioned earlier, and just I want to be a personality within the nerdy space. I want people to hit me up and ask me about, the new Marvel movie or the new anime coming out, or, the next space I want to jump into is album reviews, though. I'm trying to figure out my way into that because I love listening and it's another form of content that I could put out there, and I'm going to be listening anyway and giving my opinion, whether it's on Threads or Instagram or Twitter. So I'm like, why not turn that into video content, But yeah, for the most part, those are the things I'm working on. And the merch, of course. The merch, I'm doing a lot of the designs on my own. You know what I'm saying? I'm coming up with the graphics. Like, this graphic on my shirt actually was shot by a friend of mine's. Her name is Mariam Ali. She goes by the Mizza. She's a model, a photographer, and a multi-hyphenate creative herself. She had taken this picture randomly of these joints that she had in her house with her and her friends. And I was like, my song, Me, Myself, and Mary Jane, I was like, that would be the perfect image. I was like, I wanted to create merch that men would wear, but also that women would be drawn to as well. I kind of wanted to make it to where it was unisex in the sense of where it was like, it had something that was visually appealing to women, but it also wasn't off-putting to a guy to wear it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I felt like I wanted the merch to work the same way, like a comedian tells a joke and everybody in the room from a different culture laughs for a different reason. That makes sense?
Yeah. Well, since you're a writer and since you're a creative, do you think you could look at a photo and write a song to go along with that photo? Since you were able to look at that photo and you already had a song written for it, so that photo just jumped out at you and said, pick me, pick me. Do you think you could do it the other way? Do you think you could look at a photo and maybe do a freestyle to the photo?
I think so. I mean, I think there's photos from my childhood that would bring up memories. I think there's artwork. Like I like to go to museums. Like recently I went to the Denver Art Museum to check out this expressionism exhibit, which is why it was so fresh in my mind. And I mentioned it earlier. And I read in a book that you're supposed to, as an artist, you're supposed to go on an inspiration quest. And I felt like being there that day definitely inspired me to write a verse or two. So yeah, completely. I feel like a photo is worth 1,000 words. So if it's just like any other form of art, if it strikes me and it inspires me, then I'm going to take it and find a way to turn it into words.
Would you consider yourself an introvert or an extrovert?
I think, is it called omnivert where you're in the middle? I think that's what they call it. I think that's the word.
Sure, we'll go with it.
I'm not sure. I felt like I read that somewhere. If I'm wrong, I don't want to sound crazy, but I would say a little of both, because I'm big. I'm good at talking to people. You know what I'm saying? I'm good at networking, meeting, building with people, but I also like my time alone. As I've gotten older, being the oldest of 7 and watching kids my whole life, it's brought me the appreciation of silence and waking up in the house and not hearing nothing. So I feel like I appreciate that time alone sometimes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, describe the perfect day.
Let's see. The perfect day for me. Let me ask you this first. Do you mean like if I could dream of the perfect day, or the perfect day describe a perfect day I've already had?
Let's go with the perfect day you've already had.
Perfect day I've already had.
Or better yet, since you're a creative and you have so many different outlets, what would be the perfect day for you?
I think the perfect day for me would be a day where I can just wake up and think about nothing but creative. You know what I'm saying? I'd probably wake up, maybe turn on a cartoon. I like to put on probably some anime on, right? And let's say I get inspired So I'm inspired by the anime, but I can't watch the anime at the same time as me writing. So because it'll distract me. So what I'll do is I find an old cartoon, like I'll go on YouTube and I'll put on like Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry or something like that. And I'll put it on mute in the background because I've seen them so many times that I know it. So I don't really have to hear it, but it kind of just being on in the background kind of inspires me. Turn on a beat and start writing. From there, some great food, maybe head out and get a nice, go for a walk, a museum, a movie, maybe an arcade. And then I would say from there, head to a performance, go connect with some people, meet some new fans, make some new friends, get to express my art, come home, write some more. I'm big about a lot of YouTube. I'm a YouTuber. I've been watching YouTube for a long time, so I like a lot of YouTube channels that kind of do full fleshed out shows. I'll probably get back on that, get inspired some more, and then write again. Like, I find myself telling myself I'm gonna write for an hour, and then 3 hours later, I'm like, oh man, I'm still here working on this song. I get so into it, I record 3 different takes on my phone, then I want to demo it on the computer. So I think my perfect day would just be a day of inspiration, creation, performance, a way to connect with people and to just do the things I love.
What's your most unusual form of inspiration?
The rain. The reason why my first album was called Rain is because I have an affinity for the rain. I've always loved it. Most people will say the rain depresses them. For me, it's always been inspiring. It was funny. During my first album, it's called Rain, right? It's REIGN, right? But there's a rain cloud behind it because throughout the album, I make all these references to rain, storms. It's a big part of my life. And the coolest thing was, for some reason, I have this habit of whenever I go to the studio, it rains. I don't know what it is. I don't ever plan it. It's just like a thing. And I always know it's going to be a better session when it's raining. Something about a rainy day just brings the creativity out of me. Being from New York and also living in different places from South Carolina to Pennsylvania, to Atlanta, the rain, the one thing that always was interesting to me, especially being in New York, right? New York is a place where everybody's doing their own thing. They're in their own world. And I felt like the rain kind of connected us all. Like it kind of put the world in motion, but like everybody's always doing something different in New York. But when it starts raining, everybody is trying to get out of the rain. Everybody's, whether you're talking about insects or animals or, the old lady down the block. Like, I just love the fact of the connectivity of it. Like, I'm big about that, the aspect of, like how, like the single consciousness where all of us are connected in a way. And I feel like it's one of those moments where we're all connected. And like, even though the rain isn't moving things, it is, where the leaves, the sound, the visual of it, like, the gray clouds and like the lightning and the thunder. I don't know. It's just something about it. It's always gotten me going. It's always seemed like a primal thing because I felt like most people get depressed by it. And it's just the exact opposite for me, man. It's actually one of the things about Denver that's made me a little sad is it doesn't rain here as much. I didn't know I was moving to a high desert, but it does snow. So it evens it out. And the same rain season is coming up soon. So I'm excited about that. So, but yeah, man, the rain is definitely one of those random things that inspires me tremendously.
What sort of sacrifices have you made for your music, and was it worth it?
My first sacrifice for the music is interesting. This is when I knew I was going to be a rapper for sure. I was in 10th grade. I had a geometry class, and I was reading DMX's autobiography. It was called Earl. At this time, like, I was reading a lot more. I was a big Harry Potter fan. J.K. Rowling is a huge inspiration of mine. She's the person who brought me into reading, the person who inspired me to like really love stories. And I feel like, hold on, what's the question again? I'm sorry.
What sort of sacrifices have you made for music, and was it worth it?
Okay, I'm sorry about that. So, reading this book in class, being inspired at the time from reading different authors, I started reading this book, and I was in the space where I was starting to get into rap, and I was like, man, I'm really interested in this. I need to read about somebody's life going through it. So I read DMX's book, and in the book, he starts explaining like his story, how he started rapping, who taught him how to rap, but most importantly, he explained what a bar is. So when you write a rap, the verses are usually 16 bars. In traditional rap, 16 bars, and then the hooks are usually about 8 bars, right? And when I learned that in the book, it kind of blew my mind. And I remember being in this geometry class, and every day I would go into class, and rather than pay attention to class, I would be reading this book every day. I wouldn't be paying attention. And math wasn't my favorite thing. I was always like a B plus student or better for the most part. But I ended up failing that class. And the year had flown by so quickly, and I had learned so much from the book, and I was so enthralled by it. And I would use the time to read it at school because, being the oldest of 7 and having a bunch of siblings in the house, living with my mom, it was a lot going on. I had a lot to do at home. So it was like my time and a moment of peace. And I felt like me failing that geometry class was my first sacrifice for hip hop. It was like, I had to do that class over, but I wouldn't change that for the world. I cried, man. I was sad. My parents were not happy with me, and I was a bit of an overachiever, so I always wanted to do well, so that, it fucked me up a little bit, but, it hit me like, nah, you made a sacrifice for something you love, and this is going to take you somewhere. And it has. It's taken me to other countries. It's taken me to have conversations with people like you, and I felt like it was worth it. Other sacrifices I've made is, when my friends in their 20s were going on trips to other places, I was recording, I was writing, I was working and pouring into my music. People were going to the club, people were, spending all their money on girls, and me, I was spending money on my music. I was trying to find a way to be better, to learn more, do more studying, listening to more albums, listening and scrutinizing over my music, making sure it was better. Another big sacrifice is time away from my family. Even being here, moving to Denver was to separate myself. Like a lot of people move away from their family because they hate them. I move away from my family because I don't know how to say no. I love them so much that whatever they want me to do, I'm going to try to be there as quickly as possible, as soon as possible. And I needed that buffer from my friends and my family to lock in and build my career up to a space where I can do the music full time.
Well, you had a failure in math. Have you had a failure in music? Or tell us about a failure you've had in music and how you bounce back from it.
My biggest failure, I would say, but it was a lesson. And for me, it's more about the lesson, right, than the failure itself. But the first thing I could think about is one time a bunch of friends, we went out to a Method Man and Redman show. And they were performing last. Somebody opened for them. The MC gets on stage and he's like, does anybody want to battle? I'm young. I'm a little intoxicated, a little drunk, smoked a little too many blunts. But, I'm a rapper already, so I'm feeling myself. And I'm like, all right, let's do this. So I'm raising my hand and I get picked. It's one of the guys who go on stage. Now it's me and this other guy. And I see the guy. I start thinking of stuff to say. So I'm not paying attention to what the guy on stage is saying. and he's explaining the rules. And he's explaining the rules, which this is completely out of character for me. I would never do this. This is why I know like I was just definitely intoxicated that day. As he's talking, he has the mic out, but I'm not listening. I'm thinking he's passing the microphone to me. So I snatched the mic from his hand, which in retrospect, like I said, I felt really bad about it because I'm not a rude guy, right? So like I snatch it from him. He looks at me like, okay, well, sounds like he's ready to go. So he puts on a beat and tells me to start rapping. Man, they play this beat and I hate this beat. And I like to freestyle, but the most uninspiring thing for me is a bad beat. Like it throws me off. So I had my first 2 lines. I started going and I started fucking up. Started losing my way. So I stopped because I know it's better for me to stop than when you're freestyling and just saying a bunch of bullshit. You don't want to just keep going, right?
Yeah.
But what I didn't hear was the rules. So I stopped and he's like, why you stop? I was like, I want to start over. He was like, nah, that's not how it works. He said, you listen to the rules. You have a certain amount of time to rap and that's it. And then the next person goes. So he looks at the crowd and asks the crowd, should we keep him on stage or not? And the whole crowd booed me. And I remember looking at the crowd. It was such an interesting moment because the only thing I could think to myself was never again. Never again will I let myself get booed ever again. I said, this is my fault. I was like, I wasn't listening. I wasn't paying attention. I got ahead of myself. This is a immature mistake and I deserve this. I was like, but it'll never fucking happen again. And a lot of my friends were making fun of me afterwards and they couldn't tell why it wasn't affecting me like that. And I was like, nah, I needed that lesson. I needed to understand that I can love what I do at this. I can think I'm extremely talented, but I still have to be mature. I have to be able to give people the respect of letting them speak, letting them get their words out. I can't be so caught up in trying to do well that I'm belittling other people at the same time. You know what I'm saying? So I felt like it was like instant karma for me. And yeah, that's definitely the one that sticks out to me. That was a huge lesson I needed to learn and I'm thankful for it. And I always think about to this day, like, damn, I wonder if Method Man and Redman heard me be whack. Because I'm like, my mom, like, shit, I rap really fucking well. And I'm going to work really hard to make sure they hear me again someday and know that I'm a dope MC.
What do you think if you reached out to them on social media and just kind of brought that scenario back up and said, hey, just to let you know, I was the guy that got booed off stage at, this show. I'm just reaching out to say, you know what, even though I got booed off stage and people think it was a horrible experience, I've learned from it and I've grown and I've become a better person, a better artist, a better creative from it. Do you think that they would enjoy hearing something like that? Or do you think that they would just kind of scroll past it and not worry about it?
I think if they actually took the time to read it, that it would connect to them. They're 2 people I look up to. I feel like Redman and Method Man are 2 artists who have aged really well. And they seem like deep thinkers and people who appreciate growth and somebody being transparent. So I felt like if one of the millions of people who sent the messages, if they happen to run across mine, I feel like they would connect to it and respect it. And I know one day I'm going to work with one of them for sure.
Okay. Would you say that's a lofty goal?
I don't think any goal is too lofty if you believe in it. It's like anything's possible, man. I have friends who busted their ass and they're now signed to huge record labels, touring the world. They have millions of fans. I've seen other people do it. So I know it's attainable. It's just about putting in the work, the time, the effort, and I'm already, just to give an example, the way life works is funny. I met this bassist. His name is Jesus. He's in a funk fusion band called Lettah. I met him in Atlanta. He was in my I met him at my job, right? So while working, I met him, got his number right before I left Atlanta, and I found out he had a show here in Denver a couple months after I got here. And the funniest thing was a member of Wu-Tang was performing with him. Wu-Tang went on tour over the summer to do their final tour with all 9 members, minus ODB, of course, because he passed away. So his son was there to replace him. But it was the first time anybody's seen all of them on stage together for a long time. And supposedly that'll be the last time you see all 9 members together performing. So I found out he was in town. He was coming to town. Told him I needed tickets. And he told me, I got you. Got me in the show. Great guys. Super cool. Shout out to him. Shout out to Lettah. They're great guys. They were nothing but nice. They were cool. And, you know, like I said, they got me into a free show to see the Jizza, who was performing with them. So they weren't performing with all of Wu-Tang, but the Jizza, who's also one of my favorite rappers from Wu-Tang. So I went to see the concert. Then afterwards, I go to this show and, you know, I'm watching them. You know, Jizza comes out, then the RZA comes on stage, and they do like songs together, which is crazy. It's like mind blowing because I'm like 6 feet away from the RZA, and I'm such a huge Wu-Tang fan. Like I've read RZA's book, The Tao of Wu. I've read the Wu-Tang Manual, watched the shows, listened to the albums. Like I love the lore, love what they do, love what they brought to hip hop. I definitely see myself as a descendant of what they do. And to me, it was like, it was cool because I got to be so close to them. And now I'm like, you know, that 6 degrees of separation thing. I'm like, now I have a connection to them in some type of way because these guys perform with Jizza, they perform with Ghostface. They're locked in with the Wu-Tang and they perform with them many times in different arenas. And that night I got to meet Inspector Deck, who was also one of my favorite Wu-Tang members, and shake his hand. And I felt like because of things like that, it's more than possible. And I'll get to that point to where I'll be able to connect with them one day and do a song with Redman, Method Man, with RZA. You know what I'm saying? Well, Redman isn't part of Wu-Tang, but he is an honorary member though. The same way like, you know, Capadonna is an honorary member, et cetera, et cetera.
What would you be doing if you weren't doing music?
I feel like if I didn't do music, I would probably be, which is something I'm actually getting into now, is voice acting. I'd probably be voice acting, doing cartoons, more than likely. That would be the other thing I'd be getting into. I'd be pouring into, which is something I'm still doing now. I have a couple of creative endeavors that I've been wanting to get into since I was younger. And I felt like if it wasn't this, it would just be another path that I'm already walking down, I should say.
What does music mean to you?
Music, to me, is about connection, right? It's like, it's a way to connect with people through sound and words, through rhyme and lyric. It's about being moved. Like, I've had songs that made me cry, songs that made me happy, songs that have made me feel angry. You know what I'm saying? The reason I loved Eminem so much growing up was because there was times when I was angry going through things with my parents that even though I wasn't going through what Eminem was going through, his anger, I felt it because I was angry. And I was angry with adults in my life at the time, you know, whether it been because I was immature, didn't know any better, or because I was justified, whatever reason. But it was a way for me to connect. I felt like music is about relating. Music is about letting go. You know, I feel like in those moments when you're listening to the music, you can kind of let the world wash away. You know, as a person with ADHD, sometimes I overthink and I'm thinking about 50 million things at once. And music is one of those things I could just focus on. I can put it on. I can zone out. You know, I've listened to a good album and missed a couple exits before. You know what I'm saying? So it's music for me is about being moved emotionally. It's about the uncomfortable truth. You know, that thing where it's like you connect to it so much you're angry. You connect to it so much you're saddened. Like, you know, it's like watching somebody in a movie who's a villain. Even though you know that person isn't real and the character is fictional, you hate that person. You're like, I fucking hate this guy right now. Like, and I think music is huge at creating that type of energy where it's like you feel so connected to it, even though it may not be a story. It's like I could really connect with these words. This is something I've went through, or a feeling that I felt, or it might just be one line in the song that really connects to you. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think, like, we were talking about Wu-Tang earlier, like, Inspector Deck one time said, one of my favorite lines from him on Wu-Tang's first album, he said, locked up in the bus, 40 of us, locked up. I think he's locked up for hopping on the bus, 40 of us. Growing up as a shorty shouldn't be so rough. And to me, that's an interesting line because being from New York, like, I know what it's like when the bus driver would stop at a bus stop and 30 kids would go through the back door and not pay. And he's talking about how they all got locked up because they hopped on the bus illegally without paying their fare. And I've been there on the bus and seen this happen. And I've been one of those kids hopping on the bus, but I just happened to escape the cuffs. You know what I'm saying? So I just like the relatability, the connectivity of it all, the fact that we can all live unique experiences, but it can still find a way to connect. And even music, like, without words, like, I've been getting into jazz recently, and the song that made me start getting interested in jazz was Sentimental Mood. And, like, it's so interesting to me how music can speak to me without the words. Like, Sentimental Mood sounds like happiness and sadness at the same time. Like, it's as melancholy as it is beautiful, you know? And I think that's so interesting that one piece of music can be that. You know, without the words, there's so much you can interpret from it. And yeah, that's what music is to me.
Can you tell us about one of your songs that holds a special meaning in your heart?
I have a song on my album, the new album I've been working on, featuring a very talented artist. Her name is Nina. She's a great singer. I got her on the record after writing the hook and sending her the reference track. And the name of the song is Storms Over Neverland. A big thing in my life is the loss of youth and the fact that we'll never get it back, right? I feel like a lot of adults struggle with the fact that life is so much harder now than it was when we were kids, you know? The things that we got to do, the freedom, the lack of responsibility. And I've never had a song of my own to make me cry. And when I had the rap already done, but when I got back the song with her vocals on it, because I'm in the mixing process, getting it mixing and mastered, it brought me to tears because it's so important to me to put out there what's inside of me. And that's something that's a very integral part of why I do the things the way I do. It's the reason why I believe as we grow old, we're all still growing up, right? But I feel like people decide to let go of their youth, whether it's cartoons or comics or video games, because they're childish things. And I'm one of those people who feels like that's bullshit. Like, if you love something, you keep running with it, especially if it's something that you loved in your youth. You shouldn't let go of it because of some age. If you don't like it anymore, you don't like it anymore. I get that, right? But if you're just letting go of it because you feel like you have to let go of childish things, like, who decides that? You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that song is so important to me because I feel like I've talked to so many people who felt that same way. And I feel like it's probably one of the best songs I've ever written. And I can't wait for people to hear it.
How long did it take you to write that song?
It's a good question. I've been working on this album for the last 3 or 4 years, right? Different reasons, from redoing the track list to not working with certain producers anymore, having to rework certain records, writing, lack of money, me moving here. So I would say that song, probably since I started working there, maybe like, because also there's big spaces where I'm working on other things, right? I would say at least a month, maybe a month. If I'm putting all the time together where I sat down and was able to write for that one, like a month, maybe a month and a half, because I just kept going back and changing it. Like I kept writing verses and trying to explain exactly what I was trying to get across, right? So the big thing about this album was intention. So I wasn't allowed to just rap about rapping, which is nothing wrong. It's a hip hop thing to rap about how good you are, to, to be a little braggadocio, to tell the rappers how much better you are than them, right? But I feel like the same way a rapper who is like a gangster rapper who leans on, guns and drugs and violence, I feel like as a lyrical rapper, a person who doesn't rap about those things all the time, it could be a crutch to just rap about only being better than somebody. Like, I feel like it's a crutch that lyrical rappers use, right? I don't think it's wrong to use it, but I feel like it can be overused. So I felt like it was important for me to get the intention across, get the intention across. I'm sorry. And it's important for me to say something that connects to the hook, but most importantly connects to the thought process of the song, and just bringing it all together. And I'm excited for people to hear it, because I felt like when I finished it, it was like wrapping a bow on it. You know what I'm saying? Big red bow. And it was like the perfect ending to the song. So once again, yeah, man, took me a little while, but I don't mind taking time on songs. Some songs might take me a week, might take me 2 days, or might take me 2 or 3 months. I'm okay with the process. I don't feel like you should rush the art. I feel like rushing the art is what makes sloppy art. It's what makes art that you go back and look at later like, damn, I could have did this, said this differently. And I don't like that feeling. I like putting it out there, feeling like I've done everything I need to do with this record. I've expressed everything that I wanted from it. I let the beat tell me what to do, and I just build from there.
How do life experiences and personal events influence your music?
I think it's very influential in the sense that, I pull from my life a lot. I pull from whether it's things I've gone through, a cartoon I've watched, a movie I've seen, a story I've heard, a conversation I've had. My life is as much a part of my music as my voice is. It's like it goes hand in hand. Like, I couldn't separate it.
What tools or instruments are essential for the creative process of your music?
Well, a microphone, a computer, and a great engineer. You know what I'm saying? Because we can't do nothing without a great engineer. You know what I'm saying? I'm putting the work together. I'm writing it. I'm recording it. I'm coming up with the hooks, but the engineer is the guy who's gonna help it bring it out. My phone stays with me everywhere. I have notes and written notes and voice notes for days. But that's like all I need, really. And maybe a TV. I like a good TV in the background, just because it just kind of gets me in the space to be creative, or, I mean, it's not really equipment, but like I told you earlier, the rain, I'm the guy, if it's raining outside and I could find a nice covered area, I go sit down somewhere, put the beats in, and just kind of just let the inspiration flood over me.
Well, I know most artists have a ton of unfinished music. Do you have any unfinished music And if so, how many songs?
Man, unfinished music. I probably have like 20 songs that are unfinished that I'm working on, maybe more. I have a lot of songs, man. I've recorded over 100 records. Um, other than this album, I'm actually sitting on another 4-song project that I've put to the side because I have a bad habit of when I'm working on one project and I keep getting other instrumentals, I get distracted. So then I end up, instead of finishing the song, I end up starting 5 songs and not finishing one. So I've learned to put something to the side and come back to it later. And I'm in a space now because I'm finishing up the album that I get to come back around to that space to where I can kind of just create how I want. But when I'm in a certain zone, trying to write a certain type of way, I like to focus on the project.
Did you just say you had 100 recorded songs?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%.
Are we ever going to be able to hear those songs?
A good amount is gonna come out. But I would say some of them are older. Some of them maybe I didn't get to finish them. Some of them with producers I might not be working with anymore. Some of them, I might have lost the files or just it's just not in me to finish it because the inspiration's gone. But I do have an idea eventually where I'm gonna start giving out these packages to my fans where they're able to get things from me like, pictures of old rhyme books, lyrics, old songs. I'm going to start putting out like I'm trying to find a way to give people access to unreleased music for free because I feel like some people like to peek behind the curtain per se. And I'm kind of interested to figure out how to use the stuff I've been sitting on that I haven't been able to put out, that I'm not going to put on streaming, but I still want people to hear it because I did put a lot of time and energy into it.
People say that hip hop is a storytelling genre of music. And American country, at least the old American country, is a genre of music that told a story. What are your
100%.
What are your thoughts on the combination of hip hop and country?
I'm not going to lie. I'm a little conflicted, right? I think it's great that so many genres pull from hip hop, right? I love that hip hop has expanded in that way. And, country, hip hop, jazz, being the American genres like I rock, I respect and appreciate them. I like old country personally, right? I'm like, a Johnny Cash type of guy. You know what I mean? Like, I like, same thing when it comes to rock. I like a lot of the older rock, whether, 70s, 60s, 80s rock. I felt like it can be interesting. Like Shabuzi, Tipsy's cool. It's not like it kind of grown on me because I've heard it more, especially being here. They played a lot on the radio, and I like listening to the radio still. You know, I think it's interesting to see Black people within the space. My only problem with it is I know country's very tight knit and they're big about protecting the sound, who does it, who they get to represent it. But I feel like they've completely pushed Black people to the side. And it's like you have to try really hard to be a part of it when we're like literally the people who started it. So it's like, it's conflicting to me because I feel like they don't have a problem with using hip hop in it and giving people rewards from hip hop within it, especially if you're not Black and you're performing this. I feel like they give you a little more praise, like I think about like, even though I'm not a little Nas X fan, right? When he did Old Town Road and, I remember hearing about, I forget the exact situation, but I want to say there's this thing, you'll probably know about it more than I do, but I know like when the song's doing really good, there's this thing where they put up a banner. They put up the banners in Nashville, if I'm correct, where they'll like show like, if you have like a number one record or something like that, everybody puts up these banners. And instead of putting up Lil Nas X's name, they were putting up Billy Ray Cyrus's name because he was on the remix. So they were putting his name in large as if it was his song. And Billy Ray Cyrus came out and was telling them like they were wrong and that this kid made this song and I'm only on the remix. I'm promoting what he did. And I really appreciated that. I just feel like I respect it when people like him show respect and don't treat us less than when we're within the genre. Like Beyonce being able to do a country album and the way she got snubbed at the Country Music Awards was messed up. I'm not a huge country guy, and I understand. I respect the space the same way I understand hip hop has to be respected, right? But I feel like if you're going to be influenced by it and let people within the genre use it, but then when people of my color come into the space, it's like way harder for them. And that I'm conflicted about that. And I feel like that needs to change. I feel like, America's made all these great genres. There's no reason why we can't cross over, whether it be culturally and musically. And I feel like they should be more open about letting us in and being okay with Black people doing well within the space, And I feel like a country guy should be able to dress like me and still do country if the music is good and it's still sticking to the traditions of the music, I feel like with country, it's like you have to look a certain type of way. One thing I love about hip hop is, you can wear a cowboy hat, you can wear a ninja mask, MF Doom or a superhero villain mask. I appreciate that about hip hop. And I feel like in hip hop, we're so open arms with letting other pieces of genres, whether it be samples or features, into the space. I want country to be as open because I feel like as the American genres that have taken over the world, we're only stronger together.
Well, do you feel that up and coming young Black artists that may consider themselves country, do you think they should pursue that? Or do you think that maybe they see what you see and they want to kind of shy away from that and maybe pursue a different genre? Do you think they should pour themselves into it? Or do you think they should maybe pursue that, but pursue this indie rock thing that their song could fit in both genres, played the way that they wrote it? Or do you think maybe they should focus strictly on country if that's what they claim to be, or that's what they feel they are?
I don't think there's nothing wrong with them wanting to be a part of the genre. I feel like if you grow up listening to some music and it moves you and you end up being a person who wants to create that music, you should chase it. I don't think there's anything wrong with them wanting to be in the country genre at all. I think I want country to be more open to artists of other backgrounds. I feel like rock and country, and I don't say this in a way to be like this, to separate. I'm saying this is just as something I've noticed. It's like, rock and country kind of took themselves in a space where they tried to separate themselves from the Black artists who started both of the things and kind of take it into their own thing. And it's grown. Country has a lot of subgenres the same way rock does. And I feel like there's nothing wrong with being connected to where it came from. Like it's nothing wrong with knowing it was this and now it's this. But now these new artists are coming back in as is going full circle, and Black artists are coming back into the space, that it's only right that they have the chance to make the music, to get it out there, just like any other country artist. I wouldn't, like Eminem's one of my favorite rappers. You know what I'm saying? I have no problem with listening to people. Some people within hip hop feel like it's a Black art form. Yes, it was started by Black and brown people, but I feel like hip hop is for the world. You know, I feel like country music's for the world. Rock is for the world. Music is for the world. So I just feel like the genres themselves should be more open to letting people who don't look like what may be the version of the genre you grew up with enter it. So yeah, I support it completely.
Okay. I agree with you 100%. Otherwise, how's the genre going to grow if it keeps heading down the same path it's been on since the beginning?
Agreed.
It's like a tree.
100%.
If you want it to grow, it needs different branches. And eventually the branches will all come back together and form a canopy.
Agreed. 100%. I think that's a great analogy. I love that.
Oh, thank you. How do you know when one of your songs is complete and ready to be released?
That's a good question. I guess I know it's complete. I mean, it's very obvious. But when it feels finished, like I could listen to a song over and over again, and I can have all the lyrics. I can have a full verse, a full hook, and I just can't hear it and feel like something's missing. I don't want to hear the song and be like, man, it needs something. There's too much space here, or this line needs to be different, or the outro needs to be shorter, or or the hook, I need to sing it this way. Like if I can listen to the song all the way through and not have any grievances, not have any hesitancy on whether I think it's good or not. Actually, some of the best songs, when I know they're done, is when it's so good that I'm questioning it. I'm like, man, am I just like gassing myself up right now, or is this as good as I think it is? And that's usually when the song is really done.
Well, who is the first person that gets to hear one of your completed songs?
It's a good question. I have a group of friends, a couple artists. My boy Legend, he's a Ukraine artist, but who I met in Atlanta, from Ukraine originally, grew up in Florida. He's one of the people I go to. I have another friend. His name is Kaiser Van Wilder, another artist out of Atlanta, from New York originally. He's in a band called OK88. I sent him my music. My sister. Actually, my sister usually first. My sister Janae. She's like the oldest of. So my mom and dad have 3 kids together. Then I have 2 siblings, who were by another guy, who are my mother's other relationships, and then I have 2 stepsisters. But I'm the oldest of all of them, right? And my oldest sister from my mom and my dad's kids, her name is Janae, and she's like the girl version of me, and she has really good taste in music. So I've always been big about sending it to her. I have another friend who I told you about earlier. Her name is Mariam. She's one of my best friends. I also send her my music. She's a huge one of those people who I definitely respect, like, her opinion. She's just such a interesting mind. Both of them. I feel like they just have an interesting perspective and music taste, and I know they're gonna give it to me straight. So I've always gone to those 4 people a lot. Even my dad. Even though my dad's really harsh, because he used to be in the music management himself, and me and him even though he thinks I'm very talented and he supports what I do, we listen to different types of music. He's more like the gangster rap kind of guy, and like I'm not really gangster rap, so I know it's different from what he listens to. But I also go to him a lot because he always has a great opinion as well. I also have my youngest brother. He's 14. Oh, he just turned 15. I'm sorry. Just turned 15, and because he's younger, because he's from a different age group, I like to hear what he thinks about it because I know they listen to different music. They hear things differently. And I'm always interested to know how the youth is going to feel about my music because I want it to be timeless.
Well, if one of them listened to your song and came back to you and said, I like it, but there's this certain area over here, I don't like this, or I don't like what you said here, would you take that into consideration and possibly change it? Or would you let the song stand as is?
Well, it depends. I have a rule. So when I let people hear the music, what I usually do is when I'm conflicted about it is when I let people hear it, right? So it's one of those things where it's like, let's say if I hear a song and I feel like, I want the hook to be in a different cadence, or I want it to change a line, or maybe I said, I might have rushed a line here, not said something clear there. If it's something that's sticking out to me, when I'm playing it for people, I'm looking for them to find the same thing that I was thinking of. But if it's outside of that, I would say about 70% of the time, 80% of the time, I'll take it. I'll take criticism, but I probably won't change anything. If it was something that I noticed already and it was already like in my mind, like maybe there's something I'm overthinking, but I'm not sure, so I'm going to let somebody else listen to it. But if they notice it as well, then I'll change it.
Have you ever considered giving up on music?
I can honestly say I have never thought about it. It's just a lifelong journey for me. When I got into it, I just felt like this is something I'm going to definitely do forever. And I plan on being a creative until the day I die. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to be the guy, making the song like Johnny Cash before he dies. I cut myself to see if I still bleed. You know what I'm saying? Like, I felt like as we get older and we grow through the music, it's important to still create because as you get older, your story changes, your perspective changes, your music taste changes, the things you talk about changes. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, in a way, it's a way to encapsulate different parts of your life. And I feel like I have a post about it I feel like all humans, a lot of people are working on their immortality projects, right? So I have a problem with mortality and the fact that I'm not going to be here no more. So the reason why I'm going to do my music until I die is because it's a way to leave a piece of me behind for the people who I love and the people who love my music. I want my grandkids, if they can't meet me, to be able to listen to my music and connect to who I was. I want my nieces and nephews, when they have kids and I'm not here no more, to be able to do that. I think it's, whether it be my music, the book I'm working on, the cartoon I'm working on, of course, people's legacies are their children and their bloodline, but I feel like that's such a small drop in the bucket. I feel like I want to leave my personality here in some type of way. And the music is a great way to leave my thoughts, the things I love, the things I talk about. It kind of makes me live forever. Well, until the earth is gone, I should say. Until we get on out of here or move above the clouds like the Jetsons. I don't know. Either or. But, that's so me continuing music until the day I die is a part of my immortality project. So it's something I'll never stop. And it's been days where I've been conflicted and frustrated with how the industry works and how things go, or the fact that I decided to start rapping right when the whole industry changed and they started doing streaming. And I grew up with physical albums and thinking of music in that sense, and having to readjust definitely was a little disheartened by that at moments. But I made a decision, like, if this is something I'm going to do, I have to adapt to it. It's like basketball or football, right? When they first started playing basketball or football, the rules were slightly different. And over time, they added rules. And it's like, if you love it, are you going to stop playing it because they added new rules, or are you going to adapt? And that's what I did. I found a way to adapt, and I don't see myself going anywhere. I said frustration for sure, but I've never been apprehensive about doing the music. I've never had this feeling of like, man, I just don't want to do this no more. And it's a blessing, because I know people who fell out of love with it. I know people struggling with that right now, unsure of where they want to go with it. And I'm not mad at them. I think everybody has their own journey. I have certain friends who'll be like, man, like, we got to keep them going. And I'm like, at this age and where we're at, being in my 30s, I feel like it's so important to do what your heart is telling you. It just happens to be my heart is telling me to not stop. But if yours is telling you that this path is over for you, I respect that and I support it as well. Because I feel like you can always come back to it, or you can go to your next chapter. But yeah, man, I couldn't see myself stopping, man. Never. Nah, seriously.
Do you think the older you get that your music will evolve into either a different genre, or because of new life experiences and the way that all music just evolves continuously? Do you feel that you'll be able to evolve with the music?
I feel like I'll be able to evolve with hip hop in the sense of just doing different things, trying different sounds. I'm interested to hear what instrumentals are going to sound like in 20 years, what sounds people are going to be using, what things are going to be interesting to people. And it'll be cool to be rapping over those type of soundscapes, because who knows what it's going to sound like, because music, it changes. And even though, what they say, nothing's new, on this earth, but it's just like a new version of something that's already been around. I feel like with music, it's one of the few things that, like, Mozart doesn't sound like what's the word? Like Daft Punk. You know what I'm saying? Even though they both make music without words, it's like it's completely different sounds, completely different progressions, so it's like I'm excited to see where it goes, how it grows, and like yeah, I don't know, that's just interesting to me. Like I don't think I'll ever do another genre of music per se. I think hip hop is where I'll be locked into, but I feel as time goes on, I might be influenced by more things. I might do something that's more trip hop oriented. Like, I'm a big fan of Portishead, especially their first album, Dummy. Amazing to this day, like one of my favorite albums of all time. And I felt like, that album was made in 1994, and it sounds really contemporary to the sound we're making now. And I felt like at some point in time, I want to make an album that has sonics similar to that. I want to make an album that has sonics similar to, like, I want to make songs that sound like Strawberry Fields. You know what I'm saying? I want to make songs that sound like Money by Led Zeppelin. Like, I feel like there's all these sounds that we can reach into. And as time goes on, I just want to expand in that way, when I notice myself doing something over and over again the same way, whether it's, maybe saying a word too much, or focusing on the subject too much. I like to grow. I don't want to be repetitive for the rest of my career. Some people like going back to music for the same old thing over and over again. And I think there's a way to stay yourself and grow at the same time. And I think the growth is important for me. So I see myself growing, but not changing genres. I see myself experimenting, but always keeping it hip hop.
Well, do you think you could sample from the Beatles or Led Zeppelin or Michael Jackson and make it work?
Yeah, I could, but like Beatles and Michael Jackson, they're notoriously hard to get those samples cleared because it's really expensive, and the families are very particular about who they let use the music. And also the price tag is astronomical. So, I mean, I'm in a weird space when it comes to sampling now. A lot of samples I look for, as much as there's a lot of music that I love, that I would love to sample, because of how it works and because of the process and payment system, I've been looking for a lot of things that are public domain. So I've been talking to a lot of producers like, hey, let's find something from the 1920s that's early, that we don't have to worry about. I try to look up speeches, music from other countries, because public domain changes rules depending on which country you're in. And so when it comes to samples, as much as I would love to sample those, and I feel like I would be able to give my producers good ideas. It just always, the worst part is when you make a song, you find a cool sample, and then you can't get it cleared. So now you're either stuck with a song you can't use, or now you have to find somebody to reproduce it in a way that it doesn't impede or imitate the other song too much so you don't get in trouble for it. So, I'm also very hip hop in the sense that there's some songs that I have that may have samples in them, but I'll never tell you because it's hidden and it's chopped up and it's reversed and it's changed in a way that you might not be able to tell us a sample at all, or you won't be able to recognize it. And I'm of that school as well because, hip hop started, it had this big boom after that blackout in New York where everybody went and started stealing studio equipment. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of in hip hop to make do with what we have, right? And, I feel like it's unfair the way sampling works because I feel like people would sample and do things similar to that before then, and they didn't make it a problem. Then when hip hop came and did it, it became an issue, and now everybody has to pay for samples on every genre. I think it's one of the worst things they've done to music is making people pay for samples. Like, I think it's out there. As long as it's not the same song, as long as it's not the exact same thing, and I'm just like taking exactly what you did, like, I think it's just a way of paying homage. It's a way of leading people to the music. Because one of my favorite things about hip hop listeners are people who are like trying to find the samples, trying to find where it came from. And then they end up being a fan of that song as well as the original song, which I've always thought is a cool, connection and a way to keep people, hip hop as a way of connecting the new to the old and keeping people interested in what came before as well as what's happening now.
What are some common misconceptions that people have about your music that you would like to address?
It's a good question. Misconceptions. I mean, I would say within hip hop, I have a couple of people around who might call me a backpack rapper or a conscious rapper or, a nerd rapper. But it's like, I'm a hip hop artist. Like, I pull from a lot of different places. So it's like, I don't think I fit in any of those things with all my music. I feel like sometimes, I make a nerdy record. Another time I'll make a relationship record. Another time I'll make a record bragging about how dope of a poet and artist I am. And then other times, like songs like Paranoia, I'm talking about the times when my anxiety was getting to me. I feel like it's all about the mood. I feel like I'm a self-conscious rapper. You know what I'm saying? I'm I don't know. It's just, I don't like being boxed in. Like, I think it's cool if you decide to pick a subgenre and stick with that, right? I feel like there's certain parts of hip hop, as it has subgenres, things like new boom bap, things like nerdcore, things like, the weed rappers within a rap, the people who talk about their lives. I'm one of the rappers who don't, because I don't talk about shooting people and and a lot of violence or, a lot of hip hop tropes, the way country has tropes, the way rock has tropes. Like, I don't lean into them. I kind of do my own thing. Like, if it happens that way, it's cool. I'm just big about like pushing the boundaries as far as possible.
What is one thing about you that your fans don't know that you would like them to know?
I want them to know that I'm a nerd. I'm a hip hop nerd. I'm a film nerd. I'm into anime. I'm into cartoons. And even though I like all these eclectic things, I also come from the Bronx. I come from a place that, one of our former presidents went, and instead it was a third world country, maybe a year or two before I was born. I want them to know that I come from humble beginnings. I want them to know that I come from struggle. My parents gave me a lot. I was one of those kids who didn't know that we were struggling until I got older and was able to zoom out and see it. But my parents always, when you have what you have, you don't think that there could be more because you don't know anything else other than that. I just want to know people to know that I've worked really hard to be where I'm at, to be this individual, to be okay with being myself. I want people to know that even though you can come from tumultuous situations, you can make it out, be unique, and be a reflection of who you want to be and not the things you grew up around. And I think that's important for people to know about me because I want them to be able to reinforce that in their own lives.
What is your guilty pleasure song?
I seen you ask this in other interviews, and I was thinking to myself, like, what would that be, right? And that's interesting. Guilty pleasure song. It's a good question. I would say right now, my guilty pleasure song, well, songs in general. I like songs from old animated films, whether it be Disney or the Don Bluth films. One day I want to be able to write music for cartoons, for animated films. And lately, the song that's been stuck in my head is two songs randomly. It's A Whole New World from Aladdin and Bare Necessities from Jungle Book. I don't know why, but they've been stuck in my head lately like crazy.
As soon as you said
But yeah,
as soon as you said Bare Necessities, it just started playing in my head. And that is going to be
definitely
stuck in my head all night.
So you get it. You get it, man. You get it. That's one of the reasons why I didn't like when they did the live action Jungle Book. And the reason I hated that movie was because they redid Bare Necessities. I was like, just get them to sing the same song again. They did like an acoustic, like more of a stripped down version of it. And I was like, I hate this. This is not what it was. It doesn't hit the same.
What can fans expect of you in the future?
You can expect to see merch drops. This album Downpour coming within sometime this year. I'll be dropping a date for it as soon as I finish the mixing and mastering. I want them to expect more world building. I'm going to have a Discord eventually, Patreon eventually. A lot more performances, a lot more instances like this where you're seeing me talk, getting more pieces of who I am behind the music as well as my everyday life. The podcast, the books. I just want people to be able to know that. And when they get into me, I want them to know that there's other things that you can invest in when it comes to me. There's other things that you can look for to add to the universe of Fifth Letter, the brand of Fifth Letter. And, I want people to know that I have so much to give as an artist and a creative and to look forward to it because I promise it'll be worth the listen, the watch, the read. And I'm always working my hardest to make something that is heartfelt, but also appreciated. You know what I'm saying? I do in the end know that we're making a product and just know that the product is going to be good. And just look forward to my growth. Look forward to me trying to do new things. Look forward to me developing new flows and getting more and more of who I am as a person in my music. I feel like I'm in a space now where I want to be a lot more personal. This album that I've been working on, Downpour, is, like I said earlier, my music, a lot of it is me talking to myself. It's really introspective. It's a lot of you hearing me thinking out loud in music form. And I'm ready to just bring people in. So be ready for that. And thank you for listening, whoever is paying attention.
Well, where can fans find out more about these things? More about the book, more about the music, more about just your art and you as an artist?
Most importantly, my Instagram and Instagram threads is probably where I'm most active. So whether you're looking for updates, my thoughts on the world, comics, anime, I'm more of a threads guy than a Twitter guy. Threads is a little more positive place for me personally. I feel like Twitter gets a little rowdy over there. So I like threads because it's easier to find like my to find like the crowd of people that I fit in with. So just keep an eye on those things. Keep an eye on my YouTube for music videos and updates. And yeah, but Instagram and Threads is where you're gonna find the updates most of the time. Where my show is gonna be, what's upcoming, what's new, what's old, and yeah. Anything else other than that will be released over time, and I'll be telling people about it on those platforms.
Well, what's your name on Instagram and what's your name on YouTube? Just so everybody will find you and not find other people.
Of course, of course. So first and foremost, the most of my social media is at Who Is Fifth Letter. So YouTube and Instagram are at Who Is, which is WHOIS 5THLETTAH. And I would say, TikTok is the fifth letter of the alphabet. The is a DH instead of a the, but other than that, it's spelled correctly. It's just one word. And for the most part, that's about it. Everything else is pretty much cohesive where you can find me. My name is the same. And if you're just looking for me, just look up fifth letter. I'm the one and only. You know what I'm saying? Don't put the ER at the end. I tell people it's fifth letter with the hard R. Just so you know. I'm sorry. It's fifth letter, no hard R. I have to re-say that. My bad. It's fifth letter, no hard R. So it's just remember it's an AH at the end of the fifth letter and not the ER. And I'm sure Spotify, Apple Music, whatever you listen to music on, and also Bandcamp. Go buy my music. Please. I'm trying to push as many people there as possible. Go download it digitally. I'm going to be dropping vinyl and other physical copies. I'm looking into tapes and CDs as well, but definitely vinyl is something I'm going to do because I think it's a classic form of sharing my music, and I'm excited to give that to the fans.
All right. Well, we're kind of up against the clock on this interview, and I have one final question that I always ask my guest. What are two questions you wished I would have asked during this interview that I didn't? And what are the answers to those questions?
Oh, I got two. All right. So the first one is, what anime or cartoon is most influential to my music right now? Would be one question, because I take a lot of inspiration from the storylines and how anime are put together. The way it's episodic, the way it kind of ties together, the way the stories are told, the themes. It's such an inspirational place for me when I'm watching cartoons, when I'm watching anime, any form of animation. Some people see it as a childish thing, but I see it as art, just like anything else. It's just another way to express yourself and tell a story. And for me, between the visuals, the voices, the storyline, especially anime with, the hero's journey, which is a big part of a lot of anime, a lot of cartoons, whether you're talking about Harry Potter, Jujutsu Kaisen, Batman, Superman, the X-Men, like this hero's journey, this thing of leaving and going off into the world to create your own path. That's really important to me, and very integral part of who I am as an artist. I'm very inspired by that space. I'll watch an episode, a film, and go write something right afterwards because of how it directly affects me, my mood, and the things I'm thinking about. The other question I would say I would have liked to be asked is, what's my favorite album outside of hip hop? And I would say my favorite album outside of hip hop would probably be a tie between Dummy by Portishead and Abbey Road by the Beatles. Portishead, like I said, that album, like I was saying earlier, ahead of its time. From the beats, oh man, they were like just crazy. Like, like I just love the way, I think her name is Beth, if I'm correct, the way she writes, the way she emotes, the way she lets her voice crack. It all makes sense. Like it never sounds off, even though like to somebody else, it might sound like she's not singing that well. Cause I've heard people say that and I'm like, it's beautiful to me. Like I love a unique voice more than I love a soulful voice. Like I think there's a million soulful voices in the world, right? There's lots of people who have strong voices, big voices, but I like a Nina Simone. I like, Otis Redding. You know how they have very distinct voices. It's like just a certain tone to it. Same with, and then when it comes to Abbey Road, like Abbey Road is just a work of art, man. Like to go out on an album like that, for that album to be so good as their last album. A lot of people, the last thing they do isn't as good as when they came in. And I feel like the Beatles are a perfect example of growing through time and showing how the music can evolve over time because, the beginning when they were doing stuff like, Hold Your Hand, opposed to when, compared to when they moved over and started doing like Rubber Soul and then into like, Yellow Submarine, the White Album, they kind of changed the trajectory and how they were doing things. And I just love that they ended on, such a classic album with like an amalgamation of different things that they've done over time. It felt like a time capsule of their music in a sense, but like the polished version of it. From songs like, um, like I love Maxwell Silverhammer. It's like not everybody's favorite, but I think it's such an interesting record. Or like Come Together is probably my favorite song on that album. Or like I Want You So Bad. Like all of these songs sonically are very different and they're doing a lot of things different, very different as far as lyrically, but it all fits together and congeals so well, man. Love those albums. Highly recommend anybody hasn't heard them, and huge inspiration to me. Another album I just want to mention, another huge influence in my life is Amy Winehouse. Back to Black, her second album is probably, other than Mary J. Blige, when it comes to me writing love songs and writing about relationships, the way Amy wrote, was beautiful. From her voice to the metaphors to the way she found a way to incorporate blues and jazz with hip hop and make it sound like something I've never heard before. I've never heard anybody like Amy and probably never will hear anybody like her since. I actually went to London, to Camden, where she's from, and I got to see her statue they have there with all of these people tie the tour bracelets from different festivals of hers that they went to, and they're like a bunch of them all around her. And I just love the fact that even though she's not here right now and she's gone, that her music still affects people in that way where they make that pilgrimage the way I did to just go see her statue and to be in the space where she grew up. So those are definitely three projects I love, and that's another question I wish you would have asked. And yeah.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for making it to this part of the video. If you enjoyed this video, if you'll leave me a thumbs up and a comment below. If you didn't enjoy the video, if you'll leave me a comment below and tell me why. Or if you would like me to ask Mr. Fifth Lettah a question on our next interview, if you'll leave me a comment below, I'll make sure and get that done. And Mr. Fifth Letter, I really enjoyed this interview, and I have so many more questions that I would like to ask you, and we'll get to that on a later date. But until then, cheers.
Cheers, man. It was great talking to you, man. You're a it was an honor, man. I'm always honored that anybody wants to take that time to speak to me. It means a lot. Could have interviewed anybody in the world. You know, I mean, the internet has a lot of artists, but you decided to reach out to me, and that means a lot. I take that as a compliment, and I appreciate it, and I appreciate the questions you asked. This is one of my favorite interviews I've done so far. It's very different from other interviews I've done, and I thank you for taking the time to ask really cool questions that I had to think about. And it was a great conversation. I love your energy, and I'd love to come back when I'm working on something new, man. So thank you so much to everybody who's listening. Once again, I am the Fifth Letter, and I appreciate your time and your effort.
Yes, sir.
For real.
All right. Cheers.
All right, man. Peace. Peace.
Got 'em thinking that I'm joking. These thoughts, they won't go away. What we saw left us blown in days. As we walk in the unknown place. Watch the streets talk, cause they know our names. Yeah. These thoughts, they won't go away. What we saw left us blown in days. As we walk in the unknown place. Watch the streets talk, cause they know our names.
Yeah. It's your fucking boy, Fifth Letter. Shouts to my nigga Natural. Natural disaster on the fucking beat. Tornadoes and lightning and earthquakes and shit, my nigga. Sound Village. BSSC. Yeah.
Gosh, I feel like such a guaylo.